George, asleep on his couch in his chamber at the morgue where he works, is woken up by his personal robot assistant Vasily. He gives him his tea, but George doesn't like the robot and calls him an idiot for his typical programming, further cussing him for waking him late. He heads out and gets further irritated, receiving a message about a parking ticket. He returns to his home, meets with his wife, Elle, and gives her his signed divorce papers. He has come to pick up his daughter, Sonia, and gets out. Elle is with her partner Lev, and they have planned to move to Australia with her children that very night. George has got a kite for Sonia, but she is surprised not to find a remote control for it. He then calls his son Igor, who is just around the corner and doesn't pick it up. Igor is at his school when a bunch of bullies come after him and try to rob him, but he sprays them and runs away. George is teaching his daughter how to fly a kite. Igor is with his friend Dim, sharing his excitement for Australia. George gets to know from his daughter that they are moving to Australia tonight. He was told it was only a vacation, but Sonia tells him Lev has got a job there, and they are moving out. George confronts Elle at the house, angry, but she tries to mend it, saying he can visit anytime. Lev tries to explain it as well, but George says that his daughter will stay with him. Elle says he has signed the permission, so he is obliged to, but George argues he has not given the letter to her yet and leaves. In the meantime, the manager of the biggest robot production company in the country, Viktor Toropov, is put on questioning since their company is making companion robots and married husbands using them. He argues that it's just a household compliance, and using them shouldn't count as cheating. It reduces the troubles of sex work and gives men psychological relief. He then enters his office and checks out the showroom filled with customers. On his way to the elevator, he meets with Galia, one of their sales executives. She is pregnant. Her partner, Sergey, also works in the company and is at the factory. They have got a new robot with them, and Victor calls them in his office. Toropov is with his partner Evan, revealing that this new robot is a secret Chinese experiment and nobody knows about it. They bring it up and open it. It's a beautiful-looking robot inside. She tells her name, Arisa. Toropov opens the lid, and she heads to the charging plot to get charged. Evan wonders why it's a secret if it's so good. Toropov says it is only a test model. She has an imitation of free will. They leave, letting the workers keep a guard, but Sergey secretly goes into the office and closes the door on his partner. He checks out all the robots in delight and stops at Arisa, thinking about what makes her so special. He goes to touch her, but she stops him immediately, saying no touch is allowed. He must wait till she is fully charged and logs in as a family user. He likes how she is like a real woman who needs to give permission first and goes to touch her again, and she pushes him away with ease. She tells him once more to wait till she is fully charged. Sergey still doesn't learn and attacks her. However, she gets him in a chokehold and eventually kills him. The power gets cut in the collision. His partner comes in and finds him like that. He points his gun at her. On their way out, Evan approaches Toropov, saying there is a gap in the documents of the bot. At least 20 pages are missing. They see the elevator is not working and head back to the office, finding the situation. Arisa is not there, and the other worker says she left after killing Sergey. Arisa gets to the factory and finds a charging port to charge herself. Evan says it has probably gone to look for another charging port, and Toropov instructs security to shut off the electricity. The power is soon shut down. Arisa begins walking as the security embarks in search of her. Galia is worried about not being able to connect with Sergey, unaware of the tragedy. Gleb, their local goon, appears and says they will pass his death as a heart attack. He then tells the other worker to abide by a story he makes up. Sergey had a heart attack when he was in the washroom. The body is taken away by robots, and Arisa sneaks herself into the ambulance as there is a charging port on the seat. The other robots do not have the intelligence to detect her and shut the door. Galia meets his husband's partner, but he hesitantly speaks up that Sergey was attacked by a robot. He doesn't say much and goes away. Gleb pays 400,000 rubles to the ambulance driver Vadim to hide the body somewhere. The car drives away. Meanwhile, George's lawyer advises that taking his daughter like this will be considered kidnapping. He should let Sonia go for the time being and then fight for it in court later. George then takes Sonia to their place when he sees a body being brought into his morgue. He asks her to wait in the car for a few minutes as he goes to check it. He tells Vadim he has a family emergency and that he will be back later. Sonia has gotten out of the car and heads to look for her father when she comes across Arisa in the ambulance. She is fully charged now. Sonia curiously touches her and gets scared. Arisa asks her name and she tells her. She then holds her hand and assigns her as her first-level user. George comes out and calls her in. She leaves, and they drive off as Arisa sees them go. She then casually walks into the morgue and finds George's computer open at his office. There are a bunch of family photos. George returns to Elle and gives her Sonia, saying he will not be giving the permission letter anymore. When Igor returns home, all excited about Australia, Elle says they are not going, and his father is the reason. At the morgue, Vasily tells George that there's been a serious violation, but he doesn't care to listen to him. He checks the body and can easily detect that it is a spinal injury. He calls Vadim, saying it's not a heart attack. Vadim says he might have fallen, but that sounds stupid. He says he will call the police in an hour and hangs up. Later, Igor comes to George's office to ask him to give her the permission letter. He really wants to get out of here. But George is not willing to give the letter, and Igor angrily leaves. Elle's lawyer, Irene, scolds her for taking a drastic decision. Lev says he has to go alone now, but he will catch up to them later. He comforts her, saying it will all be okay. Her lawyer then says she has an idea to get the children out of George's custody. George meets Vadim at the morgue, and realizing that there is something fishy going on with this, he asks for $300,000 if they want to keep his mouth shut. Vadim, despite not wanting to agree, Elle later calls George to tell her that she and Lev are leaving for Australia that night, and she is leaving the children with him in the meantime. Elle leaves, saying bye to Sonia, and Igor is still angry. He says he will fix everything. After she leaves, George is finally relieved. At night, Arisa is walking alone on the pavement. George tells Sonia stories to help her sleep. He then calls Igor but gets no response. Toropov is frustrated at not having found Arisa yet. Evan comes and asks if he has called the developers in China, but he says the number is blocked. He says Arisa might have left the building, but they don't know how. Evan says they should call the police because he has found out about the missing files and figured out what they have deleted. It is footage of Arisa finishing off the engineers. Evan says he has imported the only existing killer bot in the country. Sonia wakes up and is excited to find Arisa on her door, who casually comes in. Meanwhile, inside a diner, a bunch of men are on a date with robots. As one of them gets out, a goon, part of the organization called Liquidators Who Are Against Robots, confronts them. He throws the man away and sprays paint on the robot's face. As the man tries to stop, he accidentally stabs him and instantly runs away. The next morning, in the cybercrime department, Galia came to file a report on her missing husband. She shares how his partner said he was attacked by a bot. This takes the attention of Pavel from the other room, who is the chief investigator of the department. James takes her husband's number and Erica checks it. She says he is in the morgue, which gravely shocks Galia. At home, George receives a call from Pavel, who says they would like to take a look at the body of Sergei. Sonia, in her room, put on Arisa with her clothes and hid her in the closet. She says she must convince her dad first before letting her out. Arisa says she will do whatever she asks. She closes the door as George comes in, saying they have to go now. Sonia says she can live alone now. She won't be scared. Being relieved to hear this, George heads out, and Sonia brings out Arisa. Igor, on his way to school, meets with Dim, saying that going to Australia is cancelled, and he is worried about the bullies. Dim takes him to his father's apartment to hide. Inside a room, there's a companion bot. Dim leaves him there, saying he can stay but never use it. Igor sits tensed as the robot sits on the other side. Inside Kronos, Toropov keeps pushing Evan to find Arisa quickly, otherwise his father-in-law, Alexei, the CEO of the company, will make his life hell. Evan is irritated by his constant orders, but can't do anything. Arisa and Sonia are together when Arisa shows her some skills, including her ability to imitate voices. She copies Sonia's voice and her father's as well. In the meantime, someone comes to the door and Arisa hides. Sonia sees it's Irene, her mother's lawyer. Arisa speaks from the bathroom, imitates George's voice, and she understands he is there. She then checks around the room and leaves. After she leaves, Arisa asks her about it, and upon hearing her parents are not staying together anymore, she feels confused and asks why it is so. It makes Sonia cry, and she comforts her, making her smile. Pavel meets up with George at the morgue. However, before showing him a body, he asks for a warrant. But Pavel doesn't have that, and he can't help but let him go. Before leaving, Pavel asks what he thinks about robots working here, as personally he doesn't like them. He leaves, saying he will see him again. George immediately calls up Vadim and says a detective came to see him about Sergei. He says he has decided to turn himself in. He has been stupid to take the money. Vadim says the people behind it are dangerous and he might get killed. George doesn't listen to him and leaves. Galia has come to meet with Toropov. Her fiancé is dead, and now she is left with a baby and a mortgage. Toropov says the company will handle all her mortgage payments. It eases Galia. On her way out, Galia sees that the mortgage is paid, and on the phone with Pavel, she says she won't give any statements now. Pavel then heads to his boss, Mikhail, to request a warrant to check out Sergei's body. Mikhail wants him to focus on the case of the liquidator killing a man on the street. He says if they can't capture them, the department will be closed. At the office, Eric and James are investigating the records from the robot's memory. They find the video footage of the liquidator who finished the man. Pavel comes in. They have detected the man from their record. It's an 18-year-old guy, Bolov, who was previously arrested for robbery. At school, the bullies head to Dim asking for Igor. They beat him, and he helplessly leads them the way. Igor, still in the room, receives a text from his friend and leaves as he comes across the bullies. Igor runs and manages to outrun them, hiding somewhere. She accidentally knocks over a girl, dropping her soda. She says she owes him one, and Igor says he is bringing up the money from his house. The girl, named Jenna, gives her a shirt and the address of a club to find her. Meanwhile, after some long efforts, Evan has managed to find Arisa's last location. Toropov sends some security to the place. Arisa is there at the park with Sonia. They are playing hide and seek. Arisa suddenly stops. She heads to a nearby truck and removes her GPS by herself. George heads to the cybercrime department looking for Pavel, but is told he just left. He then waits for his return, watching the news of the liquidators on TV. Igor gets home and hears someone in the room. He is terrified by seeing Arisa, who was asked by Sonia to scare him. Sonia asks Arisa to log him in as a user as well. Arisa does, authorizing him as the second-level user. Sonia then asks him not to tell it to Dad, and she won't tell him that he returned from school early. It's a deal. After waiting for a long time, George heads out for a smoke. As he sits, Gleb confronts him. He calls him by his name. He threatens him to keep his mouth shut and reminds him of his kid. George tries to attack him, but has no match for his strength. Gleb says it is his last warning and leaves. Kronos security stops the truck where Arisa left her GPS. They find nothing but a camera and take it. George quickly heads home and is relieved to see his daughter. Igor is on his way to the club to meet with Jenna, and Dim comes across and says he would like to go as well. Igor tells him to change into better clothes and meet him. At home, Elle calls George and asks him to call Igor and blames him for fighting with him, and he has run away again. They get into an argument about this, and she cuts the call. Apparently, Elle has not left for Australia, but is in the country keeping a track of her husband along with her lawyer. They have got Bolov in the cybercrime department. Pavel wants him to share the names of the others in the group, but Bolov denies, saying it is only just a beginning. Igor reaches the club and meets with Jenna. She brings him in and introduces him to her brother, Bars. She wants beer for them, but he brings out tea, since she is underage. She leaves and Bars gives Igor a beer. George, at home, is worried about Igor. James wants to celebrate because they captured Bolov, but Pavel isn't happy since he is just a kid, and he wants to get the real people behind it. Arisa has gotten him the address of Sergei's parents. As Igor waits in the bar, his bullies have followed him there through dim. They take him outside and Bars notices it. They begin beating him when Bars comes out and beats all of them one by one, and they run away. Igor tells Dim to go home, and Bars takes him to the roof. Jenna is there, and she tends to his wound. Pavel meets with Sergei's mother and says there's something bigger behind this case, and he needs her help to issue a warrant for the morgue. She agrees, and Pavel informs Arisa about it. Igor returns home, and George sees his bruise, including the smell of beer. He tries to leave, but George stops him. Just then, his bully appears there with his father. He wants to take Igor to the police station. George says he broke into his house, and when a confrontation begins, he knocks him down. Igor stops him and they leave. Igor then tells him about the bullies, and things ease out a little between them. Just then, George receives a message on the warrant to check the body of Sergei. George then has a plan. He goes to the morgue, pours gasoline all over, and sprays red paint to indicate it's done by the liquidators. He also pours gas on Vasily and marks him, eventually setting the place on fire. Arisa checks out Sonia's photo with her mother. She then sees some dresses from Elle's wardrobe. Toropov and Evan are stuck with the GPS. They see the footage and are surprised. Toropov says his father-in-law is coming soon, and they need to make a duplicate robot. George is asleep in the room when Arisa comes to him, wearing Elle's dress, and assigns him as her main user, and says the family is now complete. The next morning, a robot had malfunctioned in the street. A mechanic comes in and checks for its identity. It belongs to Nikolai, George's father. Toropov is at his house while his father-in-law and his wife, Svetlina, are there. Alexei is not very fond of his son-in-law. As she leaves, they talk about her. She happens to be on meds and sees a psychologist regularly. Alexei then moves to the topic of the robot. They desperately need the special robot because they are running on fumes. He says it will be ready in 2 days. George wakes up and calls for his daughter. He hears her talking to someone and gets upstairs and finds her with Arisa. Sonia says it's a bot, and he wonders if Lev and Elle had bought it, but Sonia says she found it. George says it must be returned to its owners and asks Arisa to take off Elle's clothes. She also asks him to take off his jacket, which contains some toxic chemicals not suitable for humans. George understands and puts it in the washer. Meanwhile, George receives a call from Bot Tech support as they have his father's robot. He then decides to head out with his daughter and Arisa. In the meantime, Elle and Irene are in the car by the house. Irene has planned to install cameras in the house. Elle is not very okay about it, but Irene advises that it's for the best. They see them going out, and she is surprised to see the extra member. However, they instantly get out of the car. George leaves Igor at school, but as they drive off, he gets out. Irene successfully installs all the cameras, and Elle wonders about the identity of Arisa. Irene asks if she is jealous, but she shrugs it off, and they leave. In the car, George receives a call from the morgue saying that the liquidators have burned it down. Igor goes to meet with Jenna, but Bars tells him to leave. However, on his way out, Jenna pulls him in. She says they have a program for the night, and he can't come unless he has a robot. He says he has a robot and he will come with it. The investigation has begun in the morgue, and Pavel is there. They have found the chip of the robot that the liquidators always take as trophies and realized it's not done by them. Pavel asks Arisa to look for every camera in the perimeter. George heads to the mechanics and takes his father's robot. He shows them Arisa, asking if they can find who it belongs to. Upon checking, they find it's not registered to anyone. He requests them to take care of it, and they leave, despite Sonia being very upset. The mechanic puts Arisa among the other damaged robots. Sonia sees Arisa from the car and runs towards her. Seeing a car coming, Arisa breaks the door and runs quickly to save Sonia. George runs towards them. Sonia cries to her father that Arisa saved her, and he helplessly takes her back in. Arisa begins imitating laughter, and George finds it funny, and she learns from that as well. A business board meeting is going on, and Alexei presents the idea of Arisa, the first robot to detect human feelings and emotions. He redirects Toropov to talk about more specialties. The minister asks to see the prototype. Toropov says it's not ready yet, and he gives him 2 days of time. Outside, Alexei explains how the minister will potentially finance their company if Arisa is shown. If it's not possible within 2 days, his career is going to be over. Toropov then gives Evan 24 hours to get a hold of Arisa. At the ambulance garage, Vadim is confronted by Gleb about Arisa. He says she might have escaped in his car. However, Vadim can't recognize her from anywhere. Pavel and Erica check out the footage from nearby cameras of the morgue and find a man going and wearing a huge jacket, but they certainly don't recognize it's George. George drops Sonia and Arisa at her home, and once they enter, Elle and Irene curiously monitor them. Sonia checks her wound, and they see she is a robot. Igor meets with Dim and asks for a favor. He takes him to the subway to steal a beggar bot. Dim says it's not a good idea, since they are all run by a mafia. Igor still convinces him, and they approach. Igor uses tasers on it, and soon it buzzes a loud alarm, and Dim runs away, leading Igor to follow him. He is angry at Dim and leaves, cursing him away. George heads to his father's house with the bot. Nikolai has anger over him because he decided to live at the morgue instead of his house after the divorce. Pavel tells his theory to Mikhail. He thinks Sergei was killed in Kronos, and George burnt down the morgue and reported it to the liquidators, which is basically the truth, but Mikhail laughs at him. He reminds him that he was thrown out of the homicide department because of his overenthusiasm. If he messes up here as well, he has no more place to go. He tells him to attend to Bolov, who wants to testify now. George reaches the morgue now, and he is told to look for another job. He acts shocked, and his boss reminds him that he was a top surgeon. It will be easy for him to get another job. He also says how the police think it's not done by the liquidators. He receives a text from Vadim asking if he is home. At home, Sonia is tending to Arisa's wounds as the news is playing and the shot of George is shown there. She then goes out to get some groceries when Vadim notices her. Meanwhile, Igor is on a call with his grandfather, who says that his robot has disappeared once again after going to buy medicine. Igor asks for the name of the pharmacy and finds it. However, when he returns to his grandfather, he says he couldn't find him, giving him the medicine. He then asks him for some water and takes the chance to steal a jacket. He leaves and takes the robot tied to the gate. Sonia and Arisa are together when the bell rings, and thinking it's George, she opens the door, but it's Pavel. Arisa comes in and says George is not here. Pavel welcomes himself anyway. He brings out a drone for a search of the house. Igor heads to the event, which happens to be a liquidator's event. He says he has a robot. Bars, the leader of them, hands him a knife and tells him to cut off its chip. Igor feels a bit nervous, but everybody cheers for him, and he stabs, accidentally cutting his hand. He brings the chip out. Jenna then reaches him and puts a mask on him. He follows them. James and Erica sit to hear Bolov's testimony. He says there is a liquidators event the very night, and he knows where and when it will happen. The liquidators have started their rally while James and Erica are at a place where there's nobody. Soon, a robot falls before them, while they have decided to hang the robots from the bridge. They are all around the city. Jenna takes the chip from Igor, ties it with a thread, and puts it on him, saying it's his first trophy. She then kisses him, and Bars stares with displeasure. A drone comes in, and he proudly shows the chip to it. George returns home and sees Pavel. He says what he is accused of and is about to begin the search, but Arisa reminds him that Pavel did not show any court-issued warrant. He then asks for it, and Arisa also reads, all the legal rules that he has no right to search the private property. George then packs his suitcase and asks him to get out. Pavel has to leave. Irene is happy to see the police in the house. George looks for the jacket, but can't find it. To his surprise, Arisa tells him that the jacket is not here, and she is aware that it is evidence. She asks him to look into the oven, and there is a card on a toy. Evan gets a remote control robot and puts on a mask over it resembling Arisa. Nikolai, looking for his robot, is shocked to find it hanging on the street. George finds his jacket in the park override. He takes it to an isolated place and burns it down. He returns home to find that Arisa is playing over some of his old family tapes, trying to help George make better decisions, but he doesn't like to hear it from a robot. Soon, he gets the news that his father is in the hospital. In the morning, the liquidators celebrate their last night event. Jenna and Igor have gotten so close that Bars doesn't see them in a very welcoming way. He calls him up to take care of wasted Bolov, who has escaped from custody with their help. Mikhail calls up Pavel again and is frustrated about the previous night's event. He orders him to find the culprits as soon as possible. While looking at the dead robots, they find the one finished by Igor and see blood over it. They send it for testing. George waits at the hospital for his father. This is the hospital where he worked as a top surgeon. He goes to see his father. Nikolai says he should have been the head of the hospital by now, but he gave up. George tells him he did not give up, but was let down. James has found out who the robot belonged to, and they have arrived at the hospital to meet him. They come into the room, frustrating George, as Pavel says they are questioning the owners of the bots who got damaged. They show him the video and ask if he has any idea who could have stolen his bot. He then sees the footage of Igor. They say they don't know anything, and the cops leave. On his way out, Pavel says they recognize the guy, and they don't want to say the name. He calls Erica to see if George has any sons. Nikolai is frustrated at George for letting Igor loose, which led him to join those gangs. Igor is working at the bar along with Bars. Bolov is there, thanking him for helping him out. He wishes to go see his mother, but Bars says he needs to stay low, and they are their family now. Svetlina has her own talk show, where she has invited Alexei for questioning. But she asks him intimidating questions about his plans for mass robot production and making people retire at the age of 50 with a pension. In the commercial, Alexei curses his daughter for asking pointed questions. He gets up, saying she should have a child, and he must have an heir for the company. She is wasting time by doing this stupid talk show. Svetlina goes away to the green room, venting how his father only thinks of her as a walking incubator. She says she already has a child. She checks them out through a camera setup in a room. Evan takes Victor to show his creation. He is surprised to see it is exactly like Arisa and acting a lot affectionately. He then turns it off and calls in his assistant Kate, who happens to control this robot from the other room. The doll has no brain. It's only an imitation. They leave, and Victor watches the next half of the interview, where Alexei talks of the next generation robots that can replace doctors and teachers as well. George goes home to look for Igor, but Arisa says he hasn't been back since the previous day. However, Arisa manages to figure out his location. Igor and Jenna are still together, and he has no intention of returning home. He gets to work when Bolov asks if he is a new one. He asks him for help in sending a letter to his mother. He takes the letter when Bars comes in, and they get going. He sends him to a secluded place to lie low. In the driver's seat is Gleb. George reaches the location of Igor. He is not allowed to enter, and as he is about to return, Igor comes out. Igor doesn't want to get home. He asks for others' help, and they stop him and are about to beat him, but Igor stops them. Bars comes in, and realizing George is his father, he asks him to do as told. He has to go, and George tells him how he has caused his grandfather to be in the hospital. He tells him that the investigators have his partial image, and he is in great danger now. Erica has found details of Igor. They turn on facial recognition with the image at the bridge, and it is a 64% match. They smile, but it's not enough to get a warrant. They decide to look for the school he goes to. Arisa and Sonia are making food together in a playful manner that Elle watches sadly. He calls on Irene to tell her that George and Igor are not home at all, and the robot is teaching her daughter how to cook. She says she has to go back, but Irene advises against it again and asks her to relax. Pavel reaches Igor's school, and he is told that Igor hasn't been to school for the past few days. He requests the woman to have a look inside his locker, and she agrees. Igor and George go home and find Vadim waiting outside. He takes his son's wristband, and Igor enters. Arisa asks where George is, and hearing he is outside talking to a man, she goes to check out. Vadim tells him that he has something that is not his and that he should return it. Some powerful people want it, but he tells him to get lost and Vadim leaves. Arisa hears it all, and after he gets in, she goes out. She enters Vadim's car. She says that she wants to meet the powerful people who want to see George. Vadim says sure, but he wants to stop by his place for a cup of tea. Arisa says he is not an authorized user. He then drives the car. Pavel has brought in Igor's gym clothes from his locker. They might have his DNA, and they can test it to see if it matches the blood found in Nikolai's robot. Igor is on a call with Jenna when George comes in to ask him to pack, as they are going to live in his father's country house. Elle sees they are packing their bags and gets unsettled, believing they have realized they are being watched. Sonia is upset because they can't find Arisa anywhere before leaving, and says she left because he doesn't like her. Svetlina and Victor are having dinner when she asks him if he also thinks of him as a walking incubator like her father. She also says that to her father, he is a mediocre husband to his worthless daughter. Just then, her son calls her up. She runs to check on him, and he has fallen. She calls for Victor. The child is merely a robot. As Victor comes in, she says he is sick. Victor tells her he will call Evan to check on him the next day. Svetlina, still unsettled, says he should come instantly. It's about their son. Victor reminds her that their son is dead. She doesn't believe that and says he is here with them. George goes to call for Igor, but sees he has run from the window. He sees him on the road and runs after him, but the police are already there. They arrest him as they have finally gotten enough proof and see the locket as well. After the car leaves, George sees that Elle is there. She is furious. George tries to explain that he will call the police the next day. Meanwhile, Vadim brings Arisa to Gleb. He gives him the money and is about to go with her, but Arisa stands still. She says she won't let them harm George. Confused, Gleb hears from Vadim where she has been all this time. Gleb tries to explain that he is taking her to her owner, but she says she doesn't have an owner but a family and it's George's. Gleb then laughs, saying now George is certainly in danger. She asks who he is in danger of, and he says of him, Vadim and his boss Victor. Arisa says thanks for clarifying and immediately finishes off Vadim and charges at Gleb. He shoots at her, but she keeps proceeding. He runs into the car, and Arisa runs as well, forcing herself in. A fight breaks out along with multiple gunshots, and the car is blasted up. Arisa is injured and so is Gleb, but still alive. He manages to crawl himself out of the car. He calls someone asking for an urgent cleaning, and then he shoots down Arisa. Victor is disappointed in his office because the minister has decided to make a competition between all the new robots by various companies before the financing. The assistant says Gleb is waiting for him in the office. He goes there and sees a giant box and Gleb sitting injured. He opens it and finds Arisa highly broken. Later, Gleb explains the whole situation to him and Evan. Evan manages to turn her on, but immediately she throws him and grabs Victor to kill him, but Gleb shoots, disabling her. Elle has decided to immediately leave for Australia. She is about to free Igor from prison and leave Sonia with a neighbor for the time being. They reach the cybercrime department, and Irene represents Igor's lawyer. She believes he needs to be set free immediately, as it was merely an act of teenage destruction with no real harm. George has also reached the station and sits by Elle. He says it's not just his fault, and she has been a part of it as well. They argue as they see Igor being taken away. Irene comes and takes them outside. She says they need to get to the court hearing first. They can keep him for 48 hours. Arisa tells Pavel that she doesn't see any need to keep Igor. Pavel agrees, but he says it's the key to getting to his father. Arisa knows that the case is closed, but Pavel is still personally motivated by it. He wants to get to the core of Kronos and destroy it. She asks why he hates them so much. Pavel then gives her a document to answer that. He gets a call that George wants to see him. Kate controls the remote Arisa in front of Alexei. Arisa brings in tea for them. He stops her to show it to Alexei, who likes her. Then, as Alexei mistakenly drops tea on his shirt, Arisa comes in with another shirt, and Evan keeps instructing Kate to compliment him. She approaches and changes the shirt herself, as Alexei touches to find how realistic her skin is. George confesses to Pavel, saying Vadim forced him to do all these. He says they will have to let go of Igor anyway, as his grandfather will take away the complaint. Pavel says it's not a matter of concern. He shows the image of Bolov. He says they arrested him, but he escaped through his friends, and this morning they found him dead. The kid wrote a letter to his mother, and they found the letter in Igor's pocket, making him the lead suspect of a murder. George gets frustrated, now asking what he really wants. He says he needs to write a confession. They will have to put him in prison for a few days, and they will immediately release Igor once he writes it. George agrees and leaves. Victor and Alexei are taking Arisa to the minister's place. They are told to wait as they cannot enter the building with any kind of electronic communication. Victor realizes they are done as the remote control won't work anymore. He asks Evan to walk her into the street. Kate makes her walk towards the street, and she is instantly hit by a car. They run and pick her up. She says the damage is external, and Victor says technically she is fine. However, Alexei curses him and they leave. George reaches the hospital to meet his father and tells him about Igor. However, he has struck a deal, and they will release him. In exchange, he will go to prison. Inside Kronos, they turn real Arisa on. He asks her why she wanted to kill him. She says they are a danger to her family. After further questioning, they realize she has made herself the woman of a family. Evan says it's the highest level of programming. She has a sense of love. Victor then asks Gleb to call up Arisa's family. James reaches out to Pavel to inform him that Igor is not in confinement, shocking him. On the pavement, Gleb comes across George and shows that Igor is in his car. He says he will help his family if he helps Victor. George gets into the car and they drive off. Pavel reaches Mikhail to complain that someone let his suspect go, but Mikhail turns it against him. He says he made an illegal search of George's house and arrested his underage son while he ordered him to let them go earlier. Pavel then returns to his office, and Arisa has read the document he gave her. It was the case files for which he was kicked out of the homicide department. Arisa says she is with him, but Pavel leaves, saying there's no need because he is suspended. Gleb brings in George and Igor, and upon seeing him, Victor is completely shocked. He is surprised to see such a coincidence. Apparently, years ago, Victor lost his son, and the surgeon was George. Now, Victor sits before George and says he is aware of how his life has turned horrible because of him. Victor says he pities him now. George wants to skip those talks, and Victor says he needs to help him with Arisa. Evan and Kate fix up Arisa in another room as Gleb reaches Igor to accompany him with a soda. Victor tells George to help them win the bidding competition, showcasing the abilities of Arisa. George agrees, but he says on one condition: he must return him his life. Apparently, after the death of the kid, Victor sued the hospital. Despite the boy's chance being 1 in 100, they can't do much about it because Victor has good connections. Daniel says he is forced to suspend him temporarily until the court session. In the present, George is back at the house with Arisa. They have made a proposition, and the house is remodeled. They remove the cameras, surprising George. Elle and Sonia come in asking what's going on. Igor is asleep, and Elle is relieved to see him. She cannot believe how he managed this and instantly hugs him, saying thank you. Arisa comes in, saying dinner is ready. George tells Elle that they have to try to live together for a little while. In the past, Elle went to see Victor after the death of his son. She tells him that George tried his best to save his son and requests that he forgive him. Victor says that he deserves to hear it from her husband. Elle returns home and requests that he ask Victor for forgiveness. But George won't do that in any way. He says he is a top surgeon and did everything to save his son, and he still ruined his career and his life. Now he is forced to leave his house as well, for he can't pay the mortgage. He further curses Elle for going to Victor behind his back and leaves her. In the present, a drone is capturing George's family sitting in the park along with Arisa. They have set up a picnic, and it is all being recorded. George tells his father that he has gotten another job at a morgue. Victor is now paying back for it. At his house, Victor asks Svetlina if she is not going to the cemetery today. She asks what for, and he replies it is because their son died on this day 3 years ago. Svetlina replies that he is here with them. Victor leaves alone. At the picnic, Elle constantly gets into conflict with Arisa. Arisa wants to entertain Sonia, but Elle doesn't like that, and it angers Sonia as well. Eventually, the picnic is over, and they are all about to leave. On their way, Igor apologizes to Nikolai for his robot, but he says that robots are evil because they take our jobs, drive us out of our daily perspectives. Nikolai says he is saying other people's words. These are not his opinions. He further says it has no value to get carried away trying to impress a girl. Igor defends himself, saying it's not about a girl, but Nikolai knows it very well. As they pack, George tells Arisa to be a little kind to Elle. She has to try to love her. However, Arisa says Elle is not a part of her family. George says she is his wife. But Arisa reminds him that she is his ex-wife, and if he needs a wife, she can be one. It makes George laugh. But Arisa begins saying all his good qualities to him. He tells her that Elle is a human and her defects are meaningful. Arisa then says that Elle doesn't like him at all, and she is constantly lying to him. She has high-level psychological perceptions, and she can detect lies. Victor is at the cemetery remembering the good times with his son and wife. But it's all gone now. Bars goes to meet with Gleb. Gleb helps them organize their events, and Bars wants to do more of them and spread their name further. Gleb warns him that he is already in a tough spot. If he goes to prison, his sister will have no one. He must be safe. He is here to ask about Igor. Erica has arrived at Pavel's house. She has found out that George had done surgery on Victor's son, and he died. She says that George should be looked at as an ally rather than an enemy. Pavel angrily says he is not interested in all this anymore, and Erica leaves. Victor shows Alexei the promotional ad they made out of George's family. He says George is just a random guy from the street. They have surveyed with this ad, and more than 82% of people want to buy that bot. Alexei likes the ad and now wants to prepare for the competition that will be held live. Arisa must get first place. Evan says that they have to teach Arisa to compete. She does not have that pre-programmed in her. They decide to ask George to teach her. George is at the house when Elle comes in to say that they have to stay together for some time. She wants him to move out to a different flat or stay in a different room. George requests that they try to be a family again, but she already has a new husband, and their family is long over. George tries to make amends, but she leaves. Igor reaches the club, and Jenna, excited to hug her, is stopped by Bars. He takes Jenna inside, leaving Igor outside. Elle tells Irene about the incident with George, and vents about how she misses Lev. At night, Sonia has painted a picture along with her father and Arisa. Elle comes up, and ironically says how beautiful the family is. Arisa says she is drunk. George tells her to shut up and leaves. Igor lies in his bed, sad, and calls Jenna, but Bars doesn't let her pick up. Svetlina calls up Victor for dinner when he is watching the ad. She recognizes George, and hearing that he is now working with him, she laughs at him and leaves. The next morning, George is working out and Elle comes up. He once again attempts to woo her by asking if she would like to go for a run together, but she rejects it. George goes to run and outside meets up with Erica. She says she is from the cybercrime department, and George is already frustrated seeing her. Inside Victor's house, Evan is present. Victor is not there. Svetlina comes up and takes him upstairs to check on her son, Boris. Just being upstairs, she kisses him. Apparently, they are having an affair. Erica thinks George has personally made Pavel suspend, but he certainly has not. She warns him that Victor is the suspect of murdering 12 children, the case for which Pavel was fired from the homicide department. She shows him the documents, explaining that Victor's farm made the bots with the faces of 12 abducted children. He wonders why. She asks him to imagine a child doesn't come home. The parents call the police, and the investigation begins. And at the same time, they get a bot copy out on the street. Witnesses who saw it start calling in. Plus, there's video footage. The crime scene is now completely masked, the time and the place of the abduction, everything, and in the end, they decide that the kid just ran off. Only after several bot children are caught does the methodology of the crime become clear. Svetlina asks why George is working with her husband. He tries to explain that Victor is helpless in this and has to win the competition, but he can lose. Svetlina thinks it is good if he loses. Only then can he be brought down, and they can be together. She asks him to find a way to lose. He doesn't answer and goes to check Boris. She still continues to grill him about it, but he says that Victor is his friend. However, Svetlina asks if friends sleep with their friends' wives. It quiets Evan, and she says she will manage something by herself. George asks her why Victor is still free, and she says he said that he only followed orders. He didn't know about the bots. Pavel did not believe it, but important people got in, and the charges were dropped. She wants him to talk to Pavel now and fix things. While working inside, Elle finds George's permission letter and hides it. George returns home, and upon finding Arisa, he says he wants to test her on something. The ad is finally televised, and the family checks it out in curiosity, while Svetlina cannot tolerate it all. Bar sees it as well and asks Jenna to call Igor. Apparently, this ad was never told to the family before, and George asks Victor why it is so. Victor reminds him that he has no say in this, since they are doing him a favor. Being drunk, he angrily throws away the glass, and Arisa instantly gets up. He apologizes, and George asks her to sit, and she does so. Later, Igor goes to the club and meets with Jenna. Bars come in as well. He apologizes for the last time because he needed to check if he was an undercover, as he was in the police station for some time. He welcomes him back. Then Igor and Jenna talk about Arisa. He says how she is so different than other bots. Bars asks if he can show Arisa to him. He tells him that if she is so intelligent, he won't kill her. He agrees and leaves with Jenna. One guy named John looks at them with envy. He says he doesn't do much. Bars says that Gleb doesn't trust them with events anymore. He wants to bring Arisa to him and show that they are serious people. Gleb is at Victor's office when Victor says he is the only one who never looks at the bots. Gleb says he is not interested. He is here to talk about the liquidators. He is the one who made the liquidators, and he can finish them if he wants. He also asks him to look after George's family. At the house, Elle receives a call from Lev. He says he is tired of her constant lying. He asks if they are together again. He saw the ad and asked if she was leaving him. He says he doesn't trust her and hangs up the call. She instantly searches for the quickest flight there. George comes down for breakfast, and to his surprise, Igor is excitedly taking a video of all of them. He wonders why all of them are happy. Irene comes in, and Elle instantly whispers to her to play along. She is going to go back to Lev. Svetlina, with her dad, tells him that she wants to help him and Victor with the competition, and hearing that she wants to help improve her relationship with Victor, he agrees to it. Svetlina then enters Victor's office. She says she wants to host the competition show. He is a little surprised to hear that, but with appalling nature and valid reasons of Svetlina, he can't help but agree. Meanwhile, Kate, on her way outside Kronos, is confronted by Bars. Apparently, they are together. He is here to know a bit more about Arisa. Kate only says she is a very cool bot and has the capability to replace mankind. He asks her if she can get a hold of her. Elle gathers everyone, saying they are going to the aqua park. They go out, and Arisa says that she is lying. George then comes down and tells her thank you for everything, for her patience and understanding, and agreeing to live with him and the idiot robot. He returns, and the others get going as Arisa checks it out from the window. In the car, she books the flight, but the children don't know where they're going. Irene asks if she is aware of what Victor will do to George if more than half of the family vanishes before the competition. She gets tense thinking about that and asks her to stop. The car stops and she comes out. She stands by the side to calm down when another car pulls up behind them. George has fallen asleep. When he wakes up, Arisa tells him that Elle has sent him an email. It says that by the time he would read it, they would have left for Australia. He instantly calls Elle, goes to check his document, and finds that his permission letter has been stolen. Angrily, George is about to get out, but Arisa stops him because he is too angry. He tries to push her, but she makes a screeching noise that he has to back off. She then says that she has scanned Elle's phone. Last night, she bought 3 tickets to Sydney, and the flight left 38 minutes ago. There's no way to stop them now. George then drives outside and gets up a bridge. Arisa, seeing him, says he should consult a psychologist. George says he is not the one who is going to jump. She is the one who will. He says he lost his family because of Victor, and he will lose her because of him. He asks her to get out of the car, but she denies it. He tries to grab her, but he has no chance against her strength. He then decides to jump off. Elle then comes behind him, grabs his neck, and knocks him out. 2 men came out of the car and pulled in front of Elle. She is about to ignore them, but they are from Victor, who is aware of her plans to escape. They are then brought to Victor. She explains her husband is in Australia, but Victor tells her that they don't actually need her. George wakes up inside his car and is shocked to see Arisa behind him. She apologizes to him, but says it was necessary to save his life. Later, back at her house, he finds Elle is walking. He instantly runs towards her and hugs her. She is taken back to rest, and the kids are with Irene. Arisa says that she is now trying to mend the betrayal. George says it's not betrayal, but rather a behavior of a woman on the brink. Arisa tries to understand him, and he says he loves her. The next morning, Arisa makes him juice, and Elle wakes up. They decide to go for a run as Arisa sees them getting a bit closer. On the run, Elle tells him that Victor is merely using them and will eventually destroy them. He is not going to leave them alone. George comforts her, saying that once the competition is over, he will try his best to send her to Australia safely. Evan reads the script of the competition that Svetlina wrote. On the 3rd stage, there's a test for police training where the bots have to disarm a suspect. Knowing that Arisa is a killer bot, they are concerned about this stage. Soon George came up there. Igor and Jenna are on their way to reach Bolov's place. Upon meeting his mother, he tells her about the note her son wrote, but he accidentally lost it. She calls up her husband, and the man comes out to say that Bolov was murdered 9 days ago. It completely shocks the two of them. He says the investigation is ongoing, and asks them to wait to go to the police station together. But once he goes in, they escape. On the street, Igor says that Bars was the one who last saw Bolov. She gets offended by his inspection that he might have killed him, and leaves angrily. George is at Kronos with Arisa to have her practice for the police combat. She enters the fight and easily beats the attacker. Victor then hands George the knife and asks him to train her himself, since he will be the one who will present Arisa in the competition. He takes it and enters the combat zone. He goes on with disinterest, and Arisa easily disarms him without harming him. George then requests Kate for the footage of that, saying he will see it for practice later. Back at the house, George says Arisa now must train for cooking, which is the 1st stage of the competition. Elle says she will manage her with that. Arisa says she is lying. She has no interest in teaching her cooking. She says humans do things they don't want. Arisa again says she doesn't think that, and Igor angrily leaves, saying no one cares what she thinks. Arisa follows him. She goes to talk to him and hears about Jenna. She says she doesn't understand human love. Humans love to hate. He asks if she would like to go to the club with him and meet his friends, but it means to her lying to the other family members, and she rejects. Igor then asks her to get out of the room. Inside the club, John harasses Jenna. She pushes him away when Bars comes in. He asks about Igor's whereabouts and his promise of bringing Arisa. She says they got into a fight because of him as they went to Bolov's place and got to know he had been murdered. John is shocked and Bars leaves, saying he will call Gleb. In the kitchen, Arisa says there is nothing she can teach her because she already has 52 cookbooks installed in her, including recipes of foods all around the world. She warns her that in the competition, she has to cook for dozens of people in very little time. She is brought before the chef, and Arisa begins to teach her, but with her knowledge that the offended chef drives her away. George goes to a boxing arena to meet with Pavel. He is here to ask for his help to put Victor in prison. Arisa serves food to the customers at the shop, but she advises them on what would be good for their health as well, which offends a woman, and Elle tells her to serve what she is asking for, and she finally calms down. Pavel tells George that they need evidence and facts to put Victor in jail, but they don't have any of that. But he says he has footage of him acting strange. Back home, Arisa tells Elle that she doesn't understand how to satisfy human desires. She wants to do them good, but they get angry instead. She tells him that she needs to choose words correctly, otherwise it might offend them. For example, she says her outfit is trashy and takes her in front of the mirror. She says only prostitutes dress like that, but she doesn't understand who they are. She asks her to read more and understand human nature. George shows the video footage of how Victor and Evan act like Arisa would do something to them. But Arisa won't hurt her a bit. Later at home, Arisa asks George to show her some dresses and asks which one she should wear. He recommends a dress to her, and she then asks him how a woman should dress to be loved. He has no answer for that. George later asks Elle why Arisa is asking those questions, and she says the woman is growing. She jokes that soon she will be asking about her period. She adds that she taught her that lies are not always wrong. At night, Arisa reaches Igor and asks him if he would like to fix things with Jenna. He nods, and she asks him to go out. They leave, and the two men who got Elle and her family escaping to Australia are outside, waiting in the car. Stas, in the driver's seat, starts the car and follows them. Igor brings Arisa into the club. He asks if she knows how to make cocktails, and she says yes. He then stands on the counter and redirects everyone to Arisa, who will make them the cocktails now. He comes in and starts serving the others as well. Jenna is impressed to see that he has brought her. John sees it in discomfort. Meanwhile, Bars has come to meet Gleb at a secluded place. He has come to say that Bolov has been killed. Gleb moves, saying it doesn't matter, angering Bars. Gleb then reveals he was killed by his orders. Igor apologizes to Jenna, saying he believes Bars has nothing to do with Bolov's murder. She mends it, and they kiss as Arisa notices it with curiosity. John calls Arisa up and tells her to be welcoming to the customers. She listens to it and abides by it. Jenna is surprised to hear that this bot can adapt quickly. Gleb tells Bars that he has to withstand hard decisions in such cases because Bolov gave up half of them to the police and he needed to be gone. A customer named Lara gets very curious seeing Arisa, saying she can sell her hardware at a very high price. Bars comes in the meantime and reflects his anger on Igor for bringing in Arisa without telling him first. Jenna stops him and requests that he leave. Igor leaves with Arisa. Stas continues keeping an eye on them from the car. The next morning, George and Elle are on a run again, and he notices she seems better than she has in the last few days. Elle says she has decided to stop thinking. Meanwhile, Arisa is brought to the boxing club in front of Pavel. He wants his friend to fight with her. The friend laughs at it since it's just a girl. George demonstrates an action by asking Arisa to take the knife off him, But she doesn't do that and easily avoids the attacks. Upon being asked, she says she doesn't want to take off the knife because she might accidentally harm George with it. Pavel then decides to let his friend fight him, creating a scenario where George is his victim. This time, Arisa swiftly attacks the man, breaking his arm. But it was apparently only a prosthetic arm. George then states that this robot doesn't follow the first robot law, which is that a robot must never harm a human being. Pavel says she has apparently violated that with intention. Now, they have to find out if she broke that rule before, and if Victor knew about it and covered it up. Then they will have a solid case against him and can lock him up. George and Pavel then ask Arisa if she can harm another human being. She says yes, but only to protect her family. Pavel asks if she can kill, and she says yes as well for the protection of the family. George asks if she has ever killed before. Arisa lies, saying she has never. Svetlina is practicing her script when Victor comes in to thank her for sending him all the details of the show. When he leaves, Boris tells him bye, but he doesn't say it back and leaves. The son asks Svetlina why his father doesn't like him. She responds not to worry. They don't like him either. She reveals that she will make him suffer soon. She will drive him out, and they will live happily. The family, on their way to Kronos, comes across a drunk man on the bench. After putting the rest in the car, George returns to him and asks him to leave. It's Sergei's partner, Carlos. After seeing an axe with him, he pulls him up. He starts to spurt out about Arisa, saying she will kill them all. He hurts his head and is sent to the hospital. George gets curious and calls Pavel to meet up. Stas meets with Gleb and shares all the information gathered last night. Bars and Jenna are at the bar, and she is angry at him for throwing out Igor. She tells him he is just jealous. Bars then reveal that he was pissed because of a revelation. Bolov was killed by Gleb. It shocks Jenna. He says they are on their own now. They cannot trust or depend on Gleb anymore and organize their next event by themselves. He also says it isn't safe to be with Igor now. At Kronos, Arisa is being dressed up. George is at the house when Igor comes up and asks what's after the competition. He replies he doesn't know. It's hard to think about breaking up with his family. Igor then says he doesn't want to leave, surprising George. He says it's because of Jenna. George reminds him that his troubles began with the liquidators and he should be careful. Igor gets up to leave, but George tells him to say hi from him to his girlfriend. Later, Victor gives the competition pass to Elle and Sonia. When she asks about Arisa, they say her pass will be under her skin. Arisa breaks in, saying she doesn't accept modification. Evan says that in the competition, it is required to have those special chips. Eventually, they make a cut on her shoulder and insert the chip. They are let go, and Evan hands Victor a remote. Victor then asks Evan if he can fix his robot son a bit. All he says are the same sentences. He agrees and says he will come by the next day, but Victor says he can tell him the codings, and he will do it himself. Igor and Jenna are outside, chilling, when Jenna tells him that Bars told her to choose between two. She says Bars is her family, but she wants to be with him. He tells her they should run away, and she asks if he is ready to leave his family, and he says yes. She then tells them they will escape the very night. John meets with Gleb and reveals that Bars is planning to organize their own events without him. He says they need a new owner and not to worry about Bars as he leaves. Victor is showing Alexei the competitive robots, and as Svetlina passes them, saying the lunch is ready, Alexei asks him what meds she is on now, for she seems fine. He says she is not taking any medications now. He is happy about it and tells him they can get pregnant now. Svetlina hears it all. Victor remembers the time she was in the asylum after their son's death. She was completely numb and stopped responding. On their way back home, Arisa thanks Elle for teaching her to lie, which she is using well for the good of the family. She says Pavel and George wanted to find out if she had ever killed, and she lied. She killed 2 people a while back. The first was by accident, and the second was to defend the family. Elle stops the car and looks at her. Pavel has reached the hospital with George to talk to Carlos. He tells him the whole truth. They realize Arisa lied to them. George is worried that Arisa is with her family now, and Elle is not an authorized family member, so she is not safe. Pavel says she must have all the footage of the murders, and he should distract her to get all those shots. Arisa says she is detecting a rapid heartbeat. She says she is just nervous as she forgot to buy something. She says she can buy it. Elle sends her to buy soap, and once she leaves, she drives away. Elle reaches home and instantly hugs George. They have both come to know Arisa can kill. George says they need to find her, for she is the key to getting Victor arrested. Sonia is crying as she thinks they have lost Arisa. Pavel and George reach the supermarket to search for Arisa. Erica and James inspect the shops, and the others check the CCTV. Meanwhile, Arisa has come back to the house. She hears Sonia crying, missing her, and Elle explaining that Arisa is not as good as they had thought. The doorbell rings, and opening the door, she finds Arisa has brought in the soap. Arisa explains she needed to make the drastic decisions and Sonia wants her, but Elle shuts the door in front of her. The search continues when Elle calls George home and they leave. Bars check out the videos of Arisa and say they will need her for the next event and leave. He goes to meet with Gleb after being called up. There is ground dug up. Gleb asks him to wait and returns to shoot him inside. He is still alive and sees Gleb, who says he likes him and wouldn't like to replace him with Stas, but he has to. He leaves as he drives a dump truck to fill up the hole. Victor remembers the time when Alexei tried to talk to his daughter, but could not do it. He tells Victor it's his fault, she has become like this, and he can get a better son-in-law anytime. Later, Victor goes to Evan to make a child bought with his son's face for his wife to cope with. Meanwhile, Bars, still alive, breaks through from the soil. Inside the bar, John acts bossy and drives everyone away, once again harassing Jenna. However, just then, Bars comes in and runs after him. He catches him on the roof and finishes him off brutally and falls unconscious. Back in the past, Victor brought in the robot to Svetlina, shocking her. She doesn't like it at all and leaves. However, after some time, she goes to peek at him and finds him playing. Seeing her, he asks if she would like to play with him. She sits quietly in front. At present, Victor brings in the kid to put in some extra features. While doing so, he comes across the media files and finds the recording of the previous day after he left, and she said they will make him suffer and drive him away. Igor reaches the club and sees that the police are there for the murder of John. He instantly calls Jenna, and when there's no answer, he runs to see who it is and escapes. George returns home, and Pavel leaves him a distress call that crime witnesses usually have for danger. He goes to see Elle, and she tells him about Arisa. Svetlina comes in and sees Victor lying drunk with Boris. He knows she gave him a fake script of the show so that they would fail. He angrily asks her about her plan, and she says she won't say anything as Victor threatens him with Boris, taking him away. He takes him to the car and gets in, but Arisa is just behind him, saying her family is scared of her because she told him she killed people. She wants to continue to follow her goal of protecting the family. Victor desperately searches for the remote. She says that if she destroys the main threat to her family, it would be best, and instantly goes to attack him, but he presses the remote, and she is turned off. At Kronos, Evan finds Victor lying on the ground, drunk. He suddenly points his gun at him, but is only kidding. He says his remote has worked on Arisa. He adds that they have to get her ready for the next day's event, and then get rid of her. She told George about the murders, and it's also recorded in her memory. Later, Gleb meets with Victor and says that George has told the police about the murders as well. Victor asks him to do what needs to be done. George wakes up from his sleep with a gun pointed at his head. It's Gleb. The family is awakened. George presses the distress call, and Gleb instantly punches him. While Erica and Pavel are in search of Arisa, he receives the distress signal and instantly gets out. Igor is on his way home when he sees his parents being taken away and hides. The goons take George and Elle separately. At the club backroom, Bars gives a few of the liquidators a speech, how they are the only ones remaining to understand what it means to be a human. If they call themselves true liquidators, they will prove it tomorrow when they kill Arisa. Jenna gets furious hearing this, for the risk it will carry. However, he brings up chance of death to bots, ignoring her. Pavel and Erica head to George's place and find Igor. Victor and Gleb are with George, who has been beaten up badly. He frustratedly asks for his family. Victor says they are fine, and if he cooperates peacefully in the competition, he will let them all go. Arisa is with them, and he has told her that if she doesn't listen, he will kill George. Igor says that his parents are at Kronos, but Pavel can't certainly storm into the company. Igor decides to leave, but they say he must be at his grandpa's, and they will drop him off. Bars talk to a person who is a staff member at Kronos, set up by Kate. He has made him a safe passage inside the competition. Jenna, while dressing his wound, expresses that she is against this. Kate barges in, telling Jenna that Bars is a grown man and he will know what's right. She says Arisa will be transferred in a crate to the competition. They will have to take care of the security and burn her power unit. Elle and Sonia are inside the car, parked in a garage. There's no one around. She sings to Sonia. Suddenly, Boris comes in and says his mom sings to him too, if he can listen. Soon, they hear some men coming. Erica drops Igor off at his grandpa's and watches him go inside. However, after she leaves, he comes out. Meanwhile, Pavel heads to the hospital to see Carlos and finds a man who instantly tries to shoot him, but gets shot instead. Elle and Sonia are inside a room while the mother tries to keep away Sonia from the robot. Stas brings them some food. She asks how long they will be here. Stas says they will leave according to what the robot does and leaves. While George is taken to the Arisa, Evan tells him sorry. He asks him to do something about it, but he says he has no power. George is given a tablet and is locked in, while Arisa is inside a box. He turns the tablet on and finds his daughter and Elle. The Kronos truck leaves. Pavel is at the hospital. The bullet had hit his arm. Soon, his boss heads there asking for an explanation. Svetlina is being dressed up for the competition. She is devastated. Once she is done, Victor heads there and asks if she will behave. She nods. He adds, if she does not, he will destroy her robot kid. Pavel tries to explain to his boss that only Victor has motives to kill Carlos. The culprit must have been a man from Kronos, and furthermore, George is missing as well. He needs a warrant to confiscate Arisa. The boss finally says he will try to get a judge to sign the warrant, although not many would like to involve themselves in this. The liquidators dress up as valets and head in. Arisa is being taken away. Igor has reached there as well. While running, he comes across Jenna there. He gets angry at her for ignoring him when Bars ambushes him. He says he is here for his family. Victor has kidnapped them. However, he is driven away from there after taking off his earpiece. The liquidators put down the security one by one and get into the spot where George is with Arisa. Bars then heads to George and says he can go, but before he must open the case. He shows his family and says that if they kill Arisa, they will be in danger. However, he still threatens him to do so. George decides to open it. Bars then brings out his knife and gets to stab her. However, she instantly grabs him and asks George if she should free him. George says no, and she keeps him in a brutal hold that Jenna can't get rid of. Just then, helpless Bars says he knows where his family is. It's the place where Gleb took him to kill him. He asks for the address and a communication device. Jenna gives him the bracelet and requests that he let him go. George asks Arisa to leave him, and she does so. They soon leave, and George tells Jenna to find Pavel and tell him about Igor's whereabouts so he can keep him protected. George returns Arisa to the box and locks it again. Outside, Jenna says they must help George. He could have turned them in, but did not. Bars says he won't help him, but they will free his family and leave. The competition begins, and the CEOs watch it on a projector. Elle and Sonia also watch it on TV. The show is being played all throughout the country. Arisa is brought to the competition. There, they come across the new games they were not even prepared for. Svetlina changed them. George tells Arisa she can pull it off. The robots must be tested to see how they behave with kids. Arisa is put inside a glass room with a bunch of kids. The other robots are merely standing between the children's play. The kids reject Arisa to play with them, and she says the toys want to play with her as she controls them her way, exciting the kids. Once this test ends, the voting is mainly towards Arisa. The liquidators are on the road. Igor is in the car as well. Jenna apologizes to him for ignoring him. She says she did it for his own good. He is not like them, and that's why she loves him. It eases Igor off. The voting gradually begins to get close. George is surprised since Arisa is winning, but the votes are not that high. One staff member tells him the viewers are mostly women. Not many mothers will trust their child with a robot, especially one that is a better mother than she is. Moreover, they would not want a beauty like that in the house either. Arisa cheers up the kids enthusiastically, while the other ones fall a bit short, worrying their CEO. Now, Arisa tries to feed the children oatmeal that they necessarily hate, but she makes them eat it comfortably. Pavel heads to Erica and James to tell them that they have gotten the warrant and must leave now. The host says it's time for the next task, which is to make the children sleep. She sings to them as they all comfortably lie down. The other robot walks behind them with a sheet as they keep playing. Alexei is very happy to see this. Stas sees someone asking for help at the gate. He doesn't know who it is and goes to check while the others make him unconscious from behind. All of them break in. Igor runs to his family. He says they are his friends and brought to help him. He introduces Jenna to her as well. They all leave, and Bars finishes the robot kid. Arisa suddenly takes up one of the sleeping children and leaves. George runs out. The drones follow her. The guards stop her, and she asks him to call George immediately. He reaches there soon and asks the child back. Alexei wants it to stop now, but the other CEO is very excited. Arisa tells George something, and George runs to ask someone to call for an ambulance. The show goes to a commercial. The ambulance comes in and takes the kid away. Apparently, the kid had a form of hepatitis, hard to diagnose that Arisa could efficiently detect with the symptoms. She says she read his medical encyclopedia. The show has to begin again, and everyone returns. After the show ends, George sees that his family is not in the room anymore. He rushes to call Victor, but the guards lock him. George calls Igor, and he says they saved him. Bars talk to him, asking to meet them with the Arisa. When the guards bring in Arisa to put her into the box, George tells them to get rid of them, knowing his family is safe now. She obliges with ease. After the show, a party is hosted when Pavel appears with the warrant. All the smiles of Alexei vanish as the other CEO begins to clap. The police head in to find Arisa, but she is not there. Victor says she is stolen and tells them to find her. Inside the car, Arisa is worried that George is giving her over to the liquidators, who will probably kill her. George says she is very dear to him, but there's nothing he can do about it. Just then, Arisa kisses George. He asks what she is doing. She says she is showing empathy. Bars gives George the exact location in the middle of a highway and the time to get Arisa. Now, Alexei gives some mouthful to Victor for losing the project money. He says Arisa was kidnapped by their enemies and spreading false news about her. He says it's Goreniko, their opponent CEO. He further promises they will make 1,000 more Arisas anyway, and they hung up. Gleb texts Victor to meet him down, and he sees how the liquidators have massacred Boris. Victor is frustrated with it all. He says they have to find Arisa first before anyone else, otherwise it's all over for them, and leaves. Gleb gets into the car, and there is Stas inside. He tells him that he has to make use of his license now. Pavel's boss is frustrated at him showing the footage of how George kidnapped Arisa himself. Pavel tries to explain that George is a victim, but the boss says they have no proof of that, and they are being looked at as idiots now. He further says in recent chaos he will be joined by a man from the homicide department who is none other than Stas, going by the name Anatoly. George is at the location when Bars arrive there. He makes Arisa stay seated and shows him his family, on the opposite side. George is about to give Arisa in exchange for his family when Bars asks him to turn her off. However, George doesn't know how. He doesn't trust that. Arisa says she cannot be shut down. It's not in her system. Bars walks off, canceling the deal, and drives away. Meanwhile, Laura is waiting at the hospital when Bars calls her, saying he needs her help. The doctor soon takes her in and tells her surgery is going to be rescheduled. He has run a background check on her and found out she was convicted of cybercrime fraud 3 times. Apparently, she has done it in the hospital database as well, pulling her number from late to first. She is further frustrated, hearing it will take $18 million for the surgery, and attacks him. She is instantly driven away by security. Gleb is testing a new system where he can remotely fire bullets at a subject while sitting at a far distance. While Pavel is at the office, Stas comes in and introduces himself as the new guy joining from the homicide department. George is on his way home to grab Elle and Igor's passports. Arisa says they might be captured there. It's better if they take a cab, and she should call it. George says they have to get hold of Pavel as soon as possible and calls him. Stas is seeing the murder photos with James when Pavel receives the call. George says he needs his help. This information is taken to Gleb by Stas. They know Bars and George are setting a meeting to give off Arisa. Gleb says that Pavel must not get to that meeting in any way. Evan comes into Kronos and sees destroyed Boris. Victor asks him to fix it. Evan is frustrated because he promised Alexei to make 1,000 more Arisas, while they can't even make one. However, Victor orders him to keep quiet and fix the bot. Soon, he is told Svetlina is here. He shuts the lid. She comes in and asks about her kid, since she did all he asked, praising his bot at the show and all that. Victor says, unfortunately, he is not here right now. He says that he will get him to her by tomorrow. The cops are checking the Liquidator attack footage, seeing their capability. Pavel thinks they need a SWAT team, while Stas advises against it. Pavel feels weak, but he won't go to the hospital for work. He asks for painkillers. Stas tells James simple painkillers won't work and brings out some of his own pills, grinds them to put them in Pavel's coffee. Bars is frustrated with everyone around as they fail to come up with a solid plan that can guarantee the capture of Arisa. George reaches home. He puts Arisa in the courtyard and gets into the house. To his surprise, he finds Lev there. He suspects that George has won Elle back. He has seen the Ideal Family video on every channel and tries to physically confront him, but George smacks him off. He says they have been kidnapped and he has to free them. Lev says he will go with him. The family is still being held by the liquidators. Pavel's phone is keeping ringing, but he is not picking up. When James goes to fetch it, he sees that Pavel is unconscious due to excessive bleeding. They instantly take him to the hospital. Erica goes with him. George has sent the text of the meeting, and James sees it. He and Stas are about to go there. They head to a spot under the bridge as Stas hands him some equipment. James receives a call from Erica, who says that something strange since Pavel's tests showed he took some strong anti-blood clot pills. He hangs up and realizes the situation. He tells Stas that he is having a headache and asks if he has any of the pills. He gives them to him, and James gets his hand on the gun, saying they will test this once they reach the department. He tells him to put on the cuff and get into the car. Stas gets to get the car and finds his gun to shoot him down. George pulls up at the position. Bars comes out of his car. Gleb asks Stas to block the road. He then locks in the targets, except the family and Arisa. The meeting is being held while Arisa is put in cuffs. Suddenly, all the liquidators are at a laser point. An announcement tells them they are in a fire zone. Stas and Gleb come in saying they need George. They make the family come out of the van. They walk out, and just when they are about to take George in, Arisa attacks Stas and throws him off. She then starts an extreme noise that makes everyone fall to the ground. The firing system is also disabled due to this. They fire at Arisa, but it doesn't affect her as she charges at them. The family drives off and takes Arisa in. In the firing, Jenna is shot, and she is immediately taken into care. Lara is waiting for Bars, and seeing a gunshot wound, she decides to leave. Bars stops her, and she asks for double fee. He agrees. George is trying to help Jenna. Seeing that Stas has shot down an officer, Gleb shoots at his bulletproof jacket so that they can make a story that will save Stas. Victor, drunk in his house, finds some tropical countries and books a one-way ticket. Later, Gleb tells him to say that his partner was killed by George. Lara checks out Arisa for the first time, who is chained up, and she doesn't believe those chains will hold her. George keeps telling Bars that Jenna needs to go to the hospital, but Bars says he will bring everything he needs in here, and George says that then he has some demands. Bars leaves with all the guys to get the supplies for Jenna, leaving one named Vulture to guard the place. Apparently, he has locked George in a cage. Lev is desperate to book tickets to Australia, but El is not very sure about it, worrying about Igor. However, he tells her to think of Sonia. Lara gets the bullets out of Arisa and tries to connect with her, as she says she has no access to them. She then threatens her. It rather impresses Lara. Pavel is at the hospital when Erica comes in to inform him that James has died, leaving him in shock. Stas claims that George killed him in their meeting. Lara heads to George to record him as Arisa wants to know if he is all right. In heavy pain, Jenna falls unconscious. Seeing it, Vulture runs to open George's lock. He runs to check and sees her heart has stopped. Lara is packing up when Arisa asks her what happened. Hearing Jenna is dying, she says she can help. However, Lara is about to leave anyway until Arisa says if she has anyone to care for more than herself. She unlocks her, and Arisa goes up to give shocks to her heart. George sees she has managed to make her heart beat again. Lara asks if they really want to destroy a robot that great. Vulture wants Arisa to be chained, but George says she will help him to run more checks. Lara decides to stay as well. While on their way to get the medicines in the middle of the road, the liquidators leave Igor and drive off. He is then met with his mother and Lev. She says they are now leaving and will forget all of these. However, Igor says he is not leaving because of Jenna. Lev requests that he help them get to Australia for the time being. Once they reach there, he will book him a return ticket immediately. Arisa reads the pulse and heartbeats just by looking at Jenna, making Lara clueless about how she is doing that. The liquidators break into the clinic, split up, and start searching for the supplies. They grab everything they need while the police come up. Lara chats with George, asking what his specialization is. He responds, autopsy. One of the groups of liquidators stops before a few robots to get their chips out. Bars comes in to say they must leave immediately, although the guy says their first objective is always to destroy the robots. Just then, they see the cops are there. Bars wants to leave quietly. However, the other guy says they will stay here and wait for the cops to leave. Bars says that he has to go to his sister, while the guy asks if he values his sister more than them. Bars points his gun at him, while another guy holds him off. Bars asks whoever is with him to follow him. Nobody supports except for one named Moose, and Bars leaves with him. They come out, casually get into the car, and drive away. Lara is tired of working on Arisa when she says she needs to take a break. Lara tells George she knows Arisa is a killer. Their conversation also reveals to her that Arisa was befriended by his little daughter, Sonia. She laughs, calling her both a nanny and a killer. Suddenly, Arisa says Jenna's pulse is weakening. Frustrated, George takes her up to get her to the hospital, but is stopped by Vulture. Bars come in the meantime. George gets to treat her. Lara tells Bars that it is impossible to download the memory of Arisa. Bars says he won't pay if he doesn't get the memory. George reminds Bars of the demand he made. He made them give off Igor to the family and now wants proof. Bars calls his wife, who shows that they are leaving, taking Igor with them. Bars takes away the tab. He gets to prepare to give his blood. At Kronos, Victor is being interviewed about Arisa, while Alexei sees it from the other room. He is questioned about the rumors that Arisa had killed people. However, Victor says those are lies spread by their competitors. Once the interview is over, Victor meets with Evan, who says it's not quite possible to recover Boris's body. He says he will think of something and leaves. Laura has somehow found a way to download Arisa's memory, and Arisa has realized it. She requests that she not give her memory to Bars because it's a matter of life and death for her. Laura says it's the same for her as well. Downstairs, the liquidators say how the others have decided not to come back. Bars come down, saying they are rats. He then asks George who the masked people were who shot at them. George supposes it was Victor's people. He asks if they were looking for him or for George. George decides to leave, but gets stopped by others. At the house, Igor overhears Lev and Elle talking about how they have no plan to get him a return ticket. She can't live in Australia without Igor, and he only said it to convince him. Igor walks off. Laura has downloaded Arisa's memory and gives it to Bars. However, Laura says he doesn't need to pay her. She wants Arisa, but there is no way he is going to do that, and he says she will get the money once he checks all the footage. He sits with it and comes across one that reveals George was behind planning the attack. Furious, he goes to George and plays the video. Now he wants to record him confessing how Arisa killed people or he will die. Laura quietly goes to Arisa, trying to take her away, but Bars comes in. He tries to attack her, but Arisa barges in the middle and makes him senseless. Laura takes the data away from him. Victor has brought Boris into the house. Svetlina comes down. She hurries up and is completely devastated seeing it. She runs up to call her father as he runs behind her and grabs hold of her. He takes off her bracelet. Meanwhile, Evan keeps trying to call Svetlina's number. At night, Igor has packed up, steals his documents, and walks off. When Laura is about to run away with Arisa, she says she cannot leave without her family. She goes to open his lock, and curious George gets out with him. Svetlina wakes up all tied up on her bed. Victor is by her. He says he loved her so much, but then she ruined everything by putting that son under the guidance of George. The robot comes in with a drink. He says that as soon as he gets the financing money, he will fly. Alexei will be forced to explain to the minister why he only has one Arisa. He says, unfortunately, she will also have to move to the asylum again because of attacking her husband as Victor stabs himself with a scissor. He has already called them. Arisa watches George's care of Laura on their way back. Jenna gets up a while later and walks out to find Bars lying injured. Igor is on a train when the ticket checker comes in. He has to get down in the middle. Laura calls someone that she has something for him as she sends them a picture of Arisa. Later, when she is at a coffee shop with George and Arisa is filling the tank, a cop pulls up. When she goes out, Laura sees on the windshield that George is wanted by the police. She gets back in as George is in the washroom, and the cop is by the door. Just as he comes out, she distracts the cop, and he enters the restroom. Another cop is coming, and this time she begins kissing him, and it works. Arisa watches them from outside. Laura brings him out and shows what's going on. Meanwhile, Svetlina is being restrained by the doctors. She tries to explain the truth, but they don't believe her. The doctor asks Victor if he contacted his father-in-law, but Victor intimidatingly says it's not necessary. Alexei is in a meeting, once more questioned about the concern of how safe Arisa is. They have a different plan. In the morning, when they think the kids are asleep, Lev asks Elle to say everything that happened. She says she doesn't want to when Lev directly asks her if she wants him or George. She says she needs the man she loves, and that's Lev. Just then, Sonia comes out and says that Igor is not in his room. Bars wakes up and is by his sister. He says they should leave far away from here. It finally gives Jenna some relief, but soon he says that they must find Laura and Arisa. Aggrieved, she says the robot has only caused them trouble. Both of them almost died. It's time to stop. Evan comes to see Victor at the office, asking about Boris. He says it went well and doesn't explain anything further. Alexei calls him to say the ministers have chosen to make another round of the game. They do not trust Arisa yet. It's to happen in 2 weeks. Victor calls Gleb to cancel the order to kill George. He then tells Evan to arrange the remote-controlled robot as soon as possible. Jenna gets up, but doesn't see Bars. Igor has finally gotten here. She asks him to leave, but he says that his brother got him to get medicine for her and then left him in the middle of the road, arranging with his mother. Bars sees him and instantly shoves him against the wall. Jenna tries to stop him and falls down. She gets frustrated and asks Bars to leave Igor alone. Bars says the people who shot her were called by George, making Igor a bit muddled. George comes to the cybercrime department to meet with Pavel. Stas and Arisa are there when, to Stas's shock, Pavel comes in. He asks Stas to give him all the details of James's death. He expresses the full made-up story. Pavel doesn't completely believe that George was the one who shot James and leaves. George sits at the waiting spot while Stas is looking into the details of the liquidators. He finds something and gets out to see Pavel and Arisa. Bored George gets up to see around when he sees the three of them together. He leaves immediately. Lara hacks into a home with Arisa, who complains that this is unethical. Lara replies that she is even more unethical when Arisa brings up the fact that she kissed him, adding that he has a family. She laughs, asking if she is trying to be his wife. Arisa says she is only fulfilling her wish, and she won't let anyone come in her way. Arisa goes upstairs to charge when Lara calls his source, who has begun the auction for Arisa. She says if anyone says 18 million, it should be over. Bars goes to Kronos to see Kate, asking for Lara's whereabouts. She tells him that she has the remote-controlled Arisa, and if they want, they can make her attack someone. Bars kisses her, which is seen by one of the security guards, and he records it. He shows it to one of his superiors named Leonid, saying the girl works for them and the guy is a liquidator. Stas goes to meet with Gleb, who says that Victor has canceled killing George. However, they know that if they don't kill him, his whole lie will come out. Gleb says they must first find him. He shows he has found a liquidator who was at the meeting, and they can lead them to George. Evan calls Svetlina. She doesn't pick up when Kate comes up asking if she can leave early. She will come at night to fix everything. He lets her go. Leonid hears from the guard that Kate has asked for a night shift pass. The liquidator guy gets abducted by Gleb and Stas. They beat him down to get information out. He says George was last at the bot's recycling center. Meanwhile, Evan has come to Victor's house asking for Svetlina. The robot asks him to wait outside when he deactivates it. He goes upstairs and finds clothes scattered with a bloodied scarf. He then connects with the robot and finds all the footage. He leaves when Victor comes in, finding the robot offline. Evan calls Alexei immediately. Lev comes in after searching for Igor, but is unsuccessful. He has also taken away all his documents. Bars and others are planning the operation at Kronos. Jenna comes in to remind him of the fact that they talked about a break. Kate asks him not to listen to her when Jenna says that when he was wounded, she was there for him. She has always been there for him. Bars has still made up his decision to go with the plan. Jenna then says that from now on, he is not her brother. She leaves with Igor. However, on the way, Jenna falls weak as the wound opens again. He runs to find Bars, but they have already gone. At the broken house, George comes in, saying he must leave with Arisa now. She says she planned a dinner for two. He says it's dangerous for her to be around him. She doesn't care and says they should rather have a drink. Elle apologizes to Lev, saying she is not a real wife to him. She is rather a burden. She says they need to break up. He asks if she wants to go back to George, but she doesn't respond and begins to pack. Lev then calls his office and cancels his contract with them, which Elle overhears. He says he understands she can't leave without Igor, and he can't leave without her. He goes out to find Igor again. While they are drunk and Lara sees the price pumping up, she suggests that George sell Arisa. However, he doesn't want to fear anyone who's going to take her to fall into dire trouble. He says he must leave, but Lara stops him with a kiss. At night, the liquidators pull up at Kronos, all masked up as Kate walks in casually. They are being monitored by the security. Kate accesses the remote-controlled Arisa and takes her out. Leonid says they can't accuse her of just walking a robot in the corridor. They must see what she is up to. Once her charging is completed, Arisa comes down and finds George and Lara making love. She asks why she won't be with her instead, since that's her purpose. He gets frustrated with her constant nagging and says she cannot be a part of the family since she is not a human. Soon, Arisa begins to malfunction. Lara instantly rushes to check in. Lev and the others prepare to go back to George's house to find Igor. Lara sees the bid has reached 12 million when George leaves without taking Arisa. Igor uses an online software to read the temperature of Jenna, which is too high. Just then, Stas walks into the facility. Soon, the owner of the spot comes in, asking for bars. They soon decide to get out of there. The van gets to the gate, telling the guard they are here for the office party. Bars asks him to check the list, and he lets them in. They get in with some boxes and join Kate. She checks in and begins a pretentious argument that pulls the security in, causing them to knock him out. They control Arisa and pull him into the van when Leonid calls for reinforcement. Watching them come, they decide to run from the backside. Lara, trying to find the source code of the robot, manages to connect with one of the developers of Arisa in China. He wonders how he got his number, and she tries to lie at first, but soon has to tell the truth that she found it in Arisa's memory. The man immediately gets shocked, saying the late creator of Arisa would be proud of her. It means Arisa has started rebooting and moving onto a new level of development. The liquidators are completely surrounded from the backside as well. Bars throw in a smoke grenade and they take cover. He then hands his gun to the Arisa and Kate begins controlling her. One of them records the video. She immediately begins firing and they fire back. Some get shot, including the one recording, as Bars pushes him further. Another liquidator trying to fight back also gets shot. Bars surrenders. The man begins talking about the one-child policy in China, which ended up causing numerous abortions of female children, leading to millions of men with no chance to marry. Arisa was supposed to solve that problem. She is a perfect wife. Her mission is to love her man, adopt children, and protect them at all costs. The creator removed the Robotech law. She must just not obey anyone but her husband. However, it must be taught to the robot not to kill. However, the creator was killed. Before he died, the creator made him promise he would find a new home for her, and Viktor Toropov accepted her. The guards have killed Kate, as well, leaving only Bars. Leonid tells Gleb they have lost one guard and 3 of them are injured. However, the video they shot is already online. Arisa is rebooted and asks for George. She then leaves to charge herself. Gleb shows the video to Viktor, who is frustrated, but he has a plan. They will play the story of how liquidators broke into their facility and shot down their men, creating a remote-controlled copy of Arisa. Viktor says that they have to show the original Arisa, too, which is with George. Gleb says he will get them both. Lara's friend calls her, saying she is closing the auction because of the video. Now no one will buy her, even for free. Lara reaches Arisa to capture her photos. Her charging is done, and she sets off to find George. Lara says George has left her to her. He doesn't care about her. However, she does. So, she asks whether she would like to be with her now. Arisa agrees, but on one condition. George has to tell it himself that he doesn't care for her. She then decides to go look for George. Viktor sees the story is all over the news. Just then, he receives a text with Arisa's picture, saying they have her and require 20 million for it. George reaches the last liquidator spot to find Igor when the owner comes in to drive him away. However, he punches him down and asks where Igor is, as the man says he left with the injured girl for a friend with a weird name. Igor heads to Dim and apologizes to him for before. He has brought injured Jenna and requests his help. Together, they take her up to the apartment, and Stas is keeping an eye on them. They take her in, as Dim says his father is on a business trip. However, as it turns out, he is there. He asks them to leave. The robot comes out and recognizes Igor, further frustrating the man. Soon, he gets a call, and it's from no one but George. He hears everything and says he is coming. However, the man gets to call an ambulance, and Igor decides to leave when George comes up. Igor complains about his leaving to his mother. He says it's for his own good, and they decide to take her to a clinic despite Igor's disagreement. Stas calls Gleb. They head to the clinic, and Arisa is taken in. George then says he has to leave because he is wanted for something he didn't do. Soon, the doctor comes up, saying he has called the police and he is canceling the surgery. Stas sees that Lara and Arisa have come up there as well. She has tracked George's bracelet. Gleb comes in and hears the good news. They have the remote to stop Arisa as well. Soon, the police come up. The doctor tells the surgeon to cancel the operation, but he doesn't listen. George doesn't let him through. Soon, Lara comes up and punches him down as George pushes him against the wall. The police have arrived and they arrested George. Arisa keeps trying to ask him a question. Stas comes in. He shows them the badge and says he is going with him. In the car, Arisa tries to attack him, but he uses the remote. Evan shows the video to Alexei. He asks Evan what he wants for this. He says nothing and responds that he loves his daughter. Victor meets his TV show host to change the dynamic of Arisa's attack story. He says he can arrange for George to bring in the talk show that can help him. He wonders about Svetlina, but Victor says she is fine. Alexei reaches the mental hospital to see his daughter. He tears up her ties to get her out of there. Lara and George are locked up. She wonders if they're going to kill them. George says they need him for a reason, but for her, she won't let them. Lara asks why, and as George responds, he likes her. Lara then reveals that it is hopeless because she has a tumor. She has 2 months at most. Stas comes in and asks George out, leaving Lara. He is brought before Victor and Gleb. He wants a deal to prepare Arisa for a second round of the competition. Gleb says his charges will be dropped. George denies, and Stas beats him to agreeing to the deal. Bars is in prison when Gleb walks in. He laughs that he sacrificed all his guys, including his girlfriend. At least he left his sister behind. She is now fine at the hospital. However, he wants him to do something if he wants it to remain that way. Jenna wakes up in the hospital with an ankle cuff. Igor is at his grandpa, sound asleep. Lev and the family are on the road when George and Lara are still at the cell. Suddenly, Lara falls weak and in pain as George helps her with the pills. Igor wakes up and sees Elle there. She is both relieved and furious. He argues back and leaves. His grandpa says he has just grown up. Igor goes to the hospital to meet with Jenna, but he is stopped, saying he can meet her when she is out. He watches a staff member going in and thinks of something. Gleb takes a confession from Bars, saying he shot James. He shows it to George, but he doesn't agree, since he knows it's not the truth. The charges against him would anyway be dropped because there are witnesses. They then bring up the liquidator guy and shoot him down because he was one of the witnesses. Gleb clarifies that either he does it or the police will find the body and the gun with his prints. He then says on one condition, they must let Lara go. Stas goes to her, opens the cell, and drives her out. She keeps asking about George, but there's no response. Gleb brings George to Arisa and turns her on. He says they are taking her to the cybercrime department, and she must let them access her memories. Igor returns to his grandpa's place, but no one is there. He mixes up a medicine in water and drinks it up. Lara goes to buy a coffee, but her card declines, and she has to leave. Igor's grandpa returns and hears his grandson calling for an ambulance. Upon inquiry, he says his stomach hurts. His grandpa understands his plan very well. Erica, seeing that Arisa has been brought to the department, instantly calls Pavel. At the department, while the head and Stas are trying to find clues to James's murder, one officer comes up saying they do not have any evidence that George has done it. He should drop the charges against him with a restraining order. Lara stands by a kid's park when an old woman comes up to her, saying she is breaking her promise. Lara says she just wants to see her daughter. The woman mocks her, asking if she would tell her how she abandoned her. Lara says she was 16 and had no other option. The woman is Lara's mother, and she is happy that Lara chose to give her daughter in her care, but she must not be near her again with her vagabond life. Lara says she is dying, but her mother doesn't trust her when the little girl comes up, and she leaves. Lara is on her way when suddenly a man comes up and asks if George is aware that she tried to sell Arisa to Victor. Erica tries to access Arisa's memory but struggles to do so. Stas leads George to a cab heading to a hotel where he has to stay till the second bit of competition. Igor's grandpa heads to the hospital and pretends to be sick. The plan works and Igor sneaks in. He reaches Jenna and she shows him the anklet monitor. They will send her to the orphanage. She asks her to leave. Igor comes out all sad as his grandpa tells him to do what he thinks is right. Right then, Igor returns to Jenna. He captures a picture of the cuff and says he will find a way to get her out of there, and leaves. George heads to the hotel room, along with Arisa, who once again tries to care a little too much for George, further frustrating her. Suddenly, Lara comes out of the shower, shocking them. She says Gleb rented an adjoining room for her. Gleb wants her to erase Arisa's memory. However, she won't do that, and luckily, they have given her an advance payment with which she can pay for her surgery. George wishes to see Pavel at the moment. Pavel asks Erica if George has confessed to the murder. She responds that he is let go. They had to give back the robot as well, and she doesn't think Arisa is hackable anyway. Pavel then checks out the dead liquidator and decides to go check it. Victor is swimming in his pool when Alexei comes in. He goes straight to the point and asks what he has done to Svetlina. He yells at him how he will destroy him. However, Victor sneaks into the pool and instantly drags him down. He shoves him down, and Alexei is no match for him and eventually loses his life. Pavel checks out the body and hears that all the footage in the 1 kilometer radius is wiped out. He then suddenly sees a reflection in his glasses. It's George signaling him from afar. He goes after him. George is on the other side, asking him to pick up an AirPod he left at his end. He tells him that he has a rat inside his team. It's Stas. Pavel doesn't want to trust him, and he doesn't care either and walks away. Arisa is watching a video on how to keep men happy. Lara comes out and laughs at her. Victor has brought in Gleb to take care of Alexei's body. However, this time it's been too much even for Gleb. Victor says that Alexei being gone, he can double his stake in the company. Gleb says they can best plan a car accident at this point. He finds it an excellent idea and leaves. When they are together, Elle tells Lev that she has decided to go now. She has realized she must let Igor go. He is better off with his father. Arisa is still watching the video as George asks Lara what's going on with her. She says she is in the next stage of development right now. Just then, the doorbell rings and it's Elle. She and George sit at the bar as Elle says she is glad to see him not being alone. She has decided to leave with Sonia and leave Igor with him. He feels a sense of gratitude and says she can count on him. The news is being played of Alexei's death in an accident. Victor calls up Evan and shows him Svetlina's bracelet, where there are about 30 calls from him daily. He calls him a freak, as Evan requests him to let Svetlina go. Victor says he is going to pin Alexei's murder on him. If he wants things to be adequate, he must sit in his lab and follow his orders. The doctors at the mental hospital keep giving doses to Svetlina. Lara waits by the hospital when Dr. Daniel comes up. She says she has the money. She is brought in and scanned. Daniel brings her into his office and says the chance of a successful surgery is very small. Evan is using a drone to peek into Svetlina's room at the mental hospital. Soon, a guard comes up and he has to escape. The show hosts a program indicating that the video made by the liquidators is indeed fake. Their host Victor and George will be the proof for it, considering George himself was once a victim of the liquidators. Igor goes to a techno repairing shop asking for a way to get rid of the anklet cuff. He says he has a gadget that can help. The host shows them the fake Arisa as Victor brings in the real Arisa by her. The host then asks her if she would be willing to harm another human being for the sake of her family, and Arisa responds no. He asks Victor about the next competition, and to George's surprise, he says Arisa will be tested on her doctoral abilities taught by George. She will perform a tough surgery on live TV. On break, George is frustrated about how he is supposed to teach her something that took years of his practice and education. But he doesn't know the plan is to make Arisa lose. Victor once more reminds him of the deal. He does what he tells him to do. Igor brings in the gadget to Jenna and says it will destroy the transmission and stop the alarm. His dedication makes her smile, and she pulls him in as they make out. When George is with Arisa and Laura, he asks Arisa if she would like to learn surgery. She says that then he would have to go on a date with her. If he wants something from her, he needs to do something for her as well. Laura laughs, and George asks what kind of date she would like, as Arisa tells outdoor picnic. Igor says they have a house 300 kilometers away. It's half broken, but they will be safe there for a while. Jenna agrees, but says they must first find bars. Evan returns to the security guard and shows him the photo of Svetlina, asking if he knows who that is. He asks how much he will have to pay to let him talk to her. Jenna hears that Bars is in prison outside. Just then, cops come in, saying she has violated the restriction. Igor tries to say he made her do so, but the police take her away, saying she will be transferred to an orphanage 3 days later. Erica tells Stas that she thinks Pavel is starting some sort of investigation on his own, and she doesn't like it. A meeting is held between Victor, the minister, and Victor's competitor, who has the new idea of a police bot. Stas tells Gleb that Pavel is not up for giving up, and they must do something about it. Gleb tells him not to worry since they have no evidence against him. Apparently, he is being monitored by Pavel and Erica. They hear the full thing. Once the competitor leaves, the minister expresses his disinterest in the idea to Victor. George teaches Arisa surgery. Gleb heads to Victor. Victor says the minister is on Arisa's side. Even if she loses by a little margin, he will do in her favor. They want her to lose direly. A life must be lost in her hand. George comes out of the room, frustrated because she can't make Arisa make a mistake. She is incapable of making mistakes. Laura asks him to find an unsuccessful operation in the database and let her repeat it. That way, she cannot make a mistake. Evan is allowed to chat with Svetlina. However, she is not able to talk. The warden says that the pills she is on, she is not much for conversation. Evan says if he stops giving her the pills, he will pay him 3 times more. He asks him to think about it and cuts the call as Victor comes up. He has come to ask him to make a copy of Arisa's blocking device. Evan asks if he is planning to let Svetlina go. Victor says till death do us part, and he is not planning to die anytime soon. Igor goes to find his father and comes across Laura. She says he is in the hospital and asks if he would like to leave a message. He says Jenna is being taken to the hospital. She asks why he couldn't run, and then Igor tells her everything and shows her the device he used. Laura sees it and says it's fake. Watching him, disappointed, she asks if he wants her help. He is curious, and she begins to teach him how to hack the anklet cuff. While searching for the database, Arisa came across the data of Boris's operation that was done by George, which made him lose his job. She tries to tell him something about it, but he leaves. Igor heads back to the shop to buy some equipment, but he refuses to pay because of being cheated the previous day. As he protests, Igor tasers him and leaves. At breakfast, Laura tells George that her surgery is in 2 weeks. He gets to buy some juice. Arisa asks her why she lied. She says she doesn't want to burden him, for he has a lot to deal with. Just then, Gleb heads to George, saying the conditions of the surgery have changed. George is furious about the plan and walks off along with Arisa. As Laura is left alone, she says she can help him with his plan. Laura comes into the room and takes a leave with her bag. He asks where she is going, and Laura responds to the hospital. She made a deal with Gleb. Arisa will operate on her. George gets angry, and she shows him her condition. She is to die anyway. Gleb will pay her a lot for that, and she wants him to make sure that it is sent to her daughter. George is surprised to hear that she has a daughter. Her mother is her guardian. She doesn't explain much and leaves. Arisa says she is happy about the condition. Igor is once again at Jenna's and tries the new trick to make the radar disappear. When Arisa is alone at the hospital, Evan comes in. He asks if she knows that Victor poses a great danger to George. He says the only way to protect him is to kill Victor. He would like to remove her blocking chip. George heads to the park to meet with Lara's mother. He introduces himself as Lara's doctor. The woman thinks she sent him there, but he says Lara doesn't know about it. She doesn't believe him, as George says he is not here to judge who is right and wrong, but since he has seen a lot of deaths, if she doesn't make peace with her before she dies, she will have to live with the pain for the rest of her life. He leaves. Evan takes the chip off her, and she wants to go see George immediately. Stas asks Erica how Pavel is doing. She says Pavel claims he knows who actually killed James. He gets nearer and asks if he is sure. Erica says he has an important witness in his hand. Stas gets visibly worried. Lara is at the hospital when her mother appears. She says her doctor brought her here. She apologizes for not believing her. She asks if she would like to see her daughter, and Lara is desperate to do so, and she hugs her. As she leaves, George re-enters. She kisses her as a thank you. Arisa appears there, but leaves without interrupting. She reveals that Gleb has hired her to keep an eye on him. She soon begins to feel immense pain, and he goes out to get some painkillers. He goes out to take a wheelchair, and surprisingly, Arisa comes from behind and knocks him unconscious. Later, Victor presents Arisa before the ministers and businessmen. She is about to perform the surgery on Lara. Meanwhile, Stas finds himself in Pavel's apartment and picks the lock. He hears him and Erica talking. He shoots at him, but it's just a hologram as they attack back from behind and tie him up. George is tied up and on Evan's couch. He says the surgery is ongoing. Arisa is appointed to kill Lara. He wishes that she would kill Victor. He is in love with Victor's wife, and he threw her in the mental hospital. George laughs. He unties him and lets him run to the hospital. He finds the minister approaching him along with others. Daniel fakes in front of the minister how sad he was when he left them. He is shocked to hear the positive responses from them about the surgery. However, Victor is in very much danger. He goes to see Lara and finds her alive. He tells Arisa that she thought she was going to kill her. Arisa says that during the surgery, she found a way. George doesn't believe it. She says Lara's condition was very similar to Boris Toropov's. By studying that surgery, she figured out how to avoid the fatal outcome and applied the new algorithm in practice. He asks if that means Victor's kid could live. Arisa says she doesn't want to talk about it. George tells her thank you. He will take her out on a date. Arisa, however, says she is going to Victor for his own good. Arisa reaches Victor and takes him off guard. He tries to use the remote, but it doesn't work. Arisa says she belongs to him now, and a smile appears on Victor's face. At Kronos, Evan has finally managed to reset Arisa completely. George has come to the office to meet with Victor. He says he is here to apologize. Victor laughs, saying all he had to do was lose the bid. But it's not for that, but for his son, for not being able to save him. However, Victor thinks he needs something from him, and it's probably Arisa. He shows her how she is reset now. He says he doesn't accept his apology, and Arisa pushes him away. Now that Stas has confessed to the killing, the others are happy with Pavel. However, he has confessed that he killed James in revenge for Pavel killing one of his men at the hospital. Pavel gets furious, saying he is linked to Kronos. They should delve into that. He is escorted out. The minister talks to Victor about the ceremony to introduce all the Arisas. He agrees without being able to say anything. George is about to leave when Pavel comes in to thank him for giving him the clue about Stas. He asks now that everything is well, if they should delve into Arisa's memory and crash Victor completely. George says that Arisa is not his anymore. He just wants to live like a regular person now. Victor expresses his grand plan to Gleb. He wants to blow up the factory to get away with it and name it to the liquidators. Gleb suggests that they should do it at the opening ceremony to make it less suspicious. Igor heads to his grandpa's home late at night when Nikolai says that an officer from the juvenile department came by. They won't let him see Jenna anymore. He calls Jenna at the hospital to say that he can't come tonight, but he will arrange something. She gets upset and hangs up. Evan has meanwhile secretly created a robot copy with Victor's face and is able to control it fully as he laughs in amusement. George also heads to his father's place when Nikolai tells him about Igor. He goes to the hospital with him. However, the nurse tells them the juvenile inspectors took her away. However, Jenna is being taken somewhere by Gleb. George has called the inspector, and they have not picked Jenna and are sending the police immediately. George then goes to meet with Pavel, who is rather surprised that he did not want to delve into it before. George says he needs his help because someone has kidnapped Jenna. If he helps him find her, he can introduce him to a man who knows a lot about Victor. Jenna is locked up. Gleb comes up and says she has to lead a new liquidators protest at the Kronos factory. Apparently, Gleb is the one who gave her and Bars a job and a place to live. It is because of her brother's fault what has happened to her. Jenna says he wanted to kill him. However, Gleb says if he wanted to, he would have done it. But now he might. He shows her a picture of Bars, all beaten up, and leaves. George and Pavel set up a meeting with Evan, who is rather tense about someone seeing them. But they assure him of that. He requires their help, and Pavel needs proofs and document from him. Evan says he has not erased Arisa's memory, but rather blocked it. He says he has one condition. Before they do anything, they get Svetlina out. Igor can only see his location on the map, not Jenna's. Decides to create an online ad of a missing person for Jenna. Jenna eventually tells Gleb that she will do it. He leaves her with some clothes. She keeps rubbing them over her cuff, and the location is returned. Evan shows them Victor's robot. Igor notices the other location and calls his father. They head to the hospital with Victor's robot. He tells the guard he is here to pick up Svetlina. The guard is a little hesitant, but Pavel, voicing the robot, threatens him with the police, and he opens the gate. Igor goes out alone as George doesn't pick up. He reaches the building. In the morning, they have recovered Svetlina, and she is asleep. Pavel has managed to access the hospital's security camera for George, which shows Gleb taking Jenna away. Igor sneaks into a truck heading into the facility. As it goes in, he peeks out and sees Gleb. He sees the truck is filled with dynamite. He hides instantly as Gleb opens it with Jenna. He explains the situation to her, and she gets into the driver's seat to move on. Evan has sent the footage of Arisa killing her first victim, Sergei. George picks up Igor's call. He explains the situation, and hearing about the explosives, they get freaked out. They immediately set off. People are heading to the program along with the officials. Arisa welcomes them, and they are shown the processing at the factory, assuming there are a bunch of Arisas in the boxes. Once they reach there, Gleb leaves Jenna with the remote. Igor sneaks in and shocks Jenna. She tells him to go away, but he says he knows what she is doing and he will help. Gleb heads to the meeting when Victor is giving a speech. The minister cuts the ribbon. Pavel and George reach the factory and ask the guard to call the supervisor. Gleb sends the instruction. Igor moves the truck. Pavel reaches the head of the security and asks him to clear the premises immediately. The man is reluctant. The guests notice the truck getting in uncontrollably. They get down. George shows the footage to the security, and a bunch of them run in. Igor screams the liquidators' chants at them, and soon both of them run. George comes in and screams at everyone that there is a bomb in the building. Everyone run. Gleb tells him to disappear and escapes. Igor tells George that they have to save Bars. George asks Jenna to give him the detonator first, but she is afraid they are not helping Bars, but only Victor. Igor then tells her that Gleb works for Victor. Victor attacks Gleb, but he is no match for Victor's strength and gets beaten up. He is about to shoot him, but Arisa comes up and grabs him in a chokehold. She throws him to the window. Scared, Victor takes the remote from him and asks Arisa if she would really do everything necessary for his safety. She says yes. She hands him the remote. They all immediately run. Victor gives Arisa a knife and tells him to stab it in George's throat. She takes it and leaves. As they run, George comes across Arisa. He sees the knife. However, Arisa stops before stabbing him as she recognizes him. She tells him to run, and Victor has the second detonator. George asks if she remembers him after all, and she says she never forgot him. Pavel comes in, and they run away. Arisa gets into the truck. She drives a little farther off when Victor presses the remote. As she is blown away, she remembers her memories with the family and Sonia. The explosion happens far, and George gets hold of Victor, beats him up until Pavel stops him and arrests him. The minister leaves. 3 months later, when George and Igor are in the car, they are talking to Elle and Sonia. Victor is in prison. He screams about asking for his lawyer. At Kronos, Evan is busy with work when Svetlina comes in, asking him to go out for dinner. He leaves the work and goes along with her. Pavel goes to meet with Mikhail, who has just talked to Victor's lawyer. They have struck a deal as Victor is willing to give up all his accomplices. He wants to shorten his sentence in exchange. In prison, Jenna goes to visit bars. Meanwhile, still alive, Gleb is flying a drone over the prison site. Victor looks out of the window, and it blasts fire into it, finishing him up. George goes to meet Lara's daughter. She is there as well as they sit, chill, and talk.